I guess, Scott, just let me know when we're ready.
We're good.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are back at it again for our 2022 budget process. Just a reminder for this evening, what we have on the schedule is an overview of DPW. What I have is one request about the mayor's budget from them, and then there were a couple of questions that were submitted ahead of time for that. And we also are going to be able to hear from Southside, Black Hills Universal, and Unbroken Promise Initiative this evening. And we also have capital projects on the schedule for tonight. I've sent around the adjusted list, and I don't have any changes to that list, except I think the Chief Parsons sent something around earlier about a modification to his request for the training center design. I haven't had a chance to read that yet, but I think what he's saying is there's a possibility that that could just be folded into the capital project funds for the East Hill Fire Station. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah, we can absorb that into capital project 822, which is for our taking a look at all our city facilities, and so that would work fine into that project.
Okay, great. So then my assumption is that can come off the list entirely, or is that something that council needs to say it's okay to move over to the capital project?
Yeah, I mean, as long as council's fine with that, yeah, we can just move it into that project.
Okay. Donna has a question about that.
Yeah, I don't understand. If we had been in favor of one of those things, but not the other, now they're folded together. So how do we decide?
No. The request above the mayor's budget, there was two for the fire department. One was for an electric vehicle and one's for design for the training center. What Chief Parsons and I guess Steve have worked out is that he won't need to make a request above because they can do that 50,000 as a part of the money already set aside for the capital project related to the East Hill Fire Station design. They can accomplish both of those things with that same pot of money.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm going to take that off the list for now.
And what was the amount, Deb, on the list?
50,000.
Great, great.
Anything else that we need to talk about the list before we get in? Graham?
Deb, thanks. I may not have the most recent version, but I thought the building department, there was going to be a line about starting a position from the beginning of the year rather than halfway through.
Right now for planning and building, I have a code inspector, that's what that one is starting that at the beginning instead of March. And then I have events coordinator, making that position full-time instead of.
Okay, so those are included now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Great,
last
thanks.
version that I sent was the night of the last budget meeting. I haven't modified it since then. So the one that's dated 10/13 is the latest version of it that you should have.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? All right, I do see that.
Forgive me, I do just have one more quick announcement, which is that one application from community services slipped by us. It is a relatively small one, but it's to return the library back to Sunday hours. I met with the new interim director at the library today to discuss it. The town of Ithaca is actually putting $15,000 towards this, and they've requested that the city do the same. So I'm going to get you, she's going to send me a proposal that I'll get to council as soon as possible for you to consider adding to the list.
Thanks. We can look at that. If someone wants to add that, they can do so at our next meeting. That works. Or I guess the mayor could add something. Either or.
Yeah, I'm supportive of it for what it's worth, but yeah, I think council's got to add it to the list.
Laura?
So Savante, just to make sure I understand, 15,000 from the city, 15,000 from the county, and that would add Sunday hours to the county library?
That's right. Yep.
I'll be glad if you need someone from council to add that to the list. I'll be glad to do that.
Great. I appreciate it. I will get you all the details as soon as I have them.
Just to clarify,
I'll
Laura,
add it once we see the formal request, Laura.
so just to clarify, Laura said City of Ithaca and Tompkins County, but I think the mayor said Town of Ithaca and City of Ithaca. That there
Right,
isn't
that's right.
additional funding coming
Okay.
from the county.
Not for the Sunday hours. The lion's share of the funding for the library, of course, comes from the county. But to open on Sundays, the county said is evidently a bridge too far. And they asked the library to go find support for it elsewhere.
Thanks for catching that, Rob.
All right, I'm sure we'll have a discussion about that when we get the official request from the library. We'll put it on when we see that come through. So we'll add that to probably the night that we might possibly start making actual amendments is when we'll discuss, I think, all those other things. Anything else about the list before we get right into our topics for this evening? Are we okay? Is everyone okay if the order that we go in is to hear from the community organizations first, then DPW, and then capital projects? Does that work for everyone? I see lots of thumbs up. That sounds good. So in no particular order right now, I have the community organizations listed as Southside, Black Hands Universal, and then Unbroken Promise. So I feel like we can just go in that order unless anyone has a need or a reason to go in a different order. Okay, so let's see. Is Nia the only one here from Southside?
Doesn't look like it. Looks like there's one that says Southside Community.
Oh,
Center.
I see Southside Community Center.
And Kayla, I see Kayla, see her.
I think I'm doing the right thing and moving you to panelist. Those of you that are waiting, if you get a notice that says, do you want to be a panelist? Say yes. Did I miss somebody? Is that everybody? Is that all of you?
I believe so. Greetings, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Dr. Nia Nunn here, board chair of Southside Community Center. I'm excited to have the leadership team on deck as well. Introducing to some of you, most of you know, but our executive director, Miss Siobhan Bunch, and our can you hear me? And
Yes.
Kayla Matos as well. Our executive director, Siobhan Bunch. Sorry, I felt like I said deputy director already. Our executive director, Siobhan Bunch, and deputy director, Miss Kayla Matos. So yes, you can unmute. Yes, beautiful.
Everyone.
Great. And so
I would
Siobhan,
like to apologize. I have my little brother with me, so you might see him in the camera.
so we're balancing life and family and all of those wonderful things. But hi, little one. But Siobhan, I'd love to pass you the mic to say hello to everyone, just to give a little overview of what's happening at Southside Community Center. But I should check in with you all. What's the time frame? How long would you like for us to share?
So I
And
think what we
would you
we
have
already know, yeah, we already know how awesome Southside is. So
Okay.
I think what we're looking to hear is just very specifically the city
Mhm.
budget impact, and then anything particularly related to programs that the city funds through that. And I know that we probably should have the most amount of time set aside for questions from council. So it might make sense. I would love to hear from your new executive director. Welcome, that would be great, but we really didn't plan for you to have any sort of major presentation.
Sure.
I think there was just a lot of questions that came up from council that we would love for you to just answer. So let's do quick introductions. You can do a quick highlights, and then we'll turn it over to council for questions.
Hello, everyone. Siobhan here. Thank you for having us. I'm in it. I'm here. I'm still here, we're having fun. We're in the thick of after school right now. We are have ribs open and trying to get that staffed, and preparing for Kwanzaa. It's grant time. It's just busy times. We're renting the space, and look forward to you all coming and visiting us and just seeing what's happening. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
Welcome.
I would say even more, and something specific for this weekend, we invite you all. I can send you an email. There's additional funding that you all offered us this past year, specifically for Black Girl Alchemist work. And so we have an unveiling this weekend at the downtown Ithaca Children's Center. I was working to try and get Mr. Harry on. He's not able to join us right now, but there are a variety of things that we can share as it relates to summer programming and some of the things that are happening this fall as it relates to Black Hands Universal. So yeah, I guess we are open for questions and processing. But one of the things that Siobhan and I talked about was actually inviting you all to the center to meet Siobhan, to spend some time with Kayla, to spend time with the staff, and to get to know the building and some of the new programming in store.
Great. So does it make sense to just turn it over to council? I know there were several questions. We did receive some information and your request. So I will just open the floor and see if council has questions for all of you. Laura?
Thanks very much, Deb. And thanks, Nia, Siobhan, and Kayla. Great to see you here. And it's great to see Southside programs coming back full force. It was really wonderful to see an in-person Juneteenth this year instead of a Zoom Juneteenth. So that was really, really wonderful. And you all do incredible work in the community. And, I'll speak for myself as part of city government, delighted to be supportive of your programs. Now, last year, the budget allotment for Southside was increased from the previous year. And my recollection is that was increased due to the COVID impact, particularly on the reduced program enrollment. And you had an executive director search, which I think everyone is so delighted was such a successful executive director search. So because some of the funding last year was quite specific to those efforts, I just have a question about funding and how the requested funding will be allocated and applied in 2022.
Great. Whoever wants to answer that, go for it.
Well, I'll go ahead and get us started, and then the team can jump right on in. So it will be allocated similarly to how it was allocated last year, just strengthening our administrative force, as well as the contribution to the work coming out of Black Hands Universal and Black Girl Alchemist. And so, yeah, I think that's the beginning of answering the question, just really continuing to push on. We are still very much in the, facing the pandemic. It's still quite real, but just maintaining the strength of our programming and staff right now is really the ultimate goal for 2022. I think what's been transformative in a very short period of time is the work that both Siobhan and Kayla have put into taking RIBS to another level, and their success with bringing over 300 Black cyclists to Ithaca in July. So we're really, we want to highlight all the programs and all the wonderful things that are happening, but I want to center some of the energy, the significant energy from our administration going into our cycling culture. Is there anything that you want to add to that, Siobhan, or as you listen to what's being asked?
Yeah, and then going off of that, we were also able to hire an amazing program director. Did I see Marte? And she's working diligently in the after school program. She's doing amazing, coming up with other team programming as well in the space, and allowing for me to now transition from a program director to a deputy director. So that's allowing for me to do the finance. Allowing for me to do the finances and allowing for me to begin grant writing and things like that.
Tell it. It's okay, Sam. It's okay, Sammy.
To be the center of attention. I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right. I see Donna's hand, but I also want to make sure you answer it. Good. Donna and then Cynthia. And Graham, did I see your hand or were you just waving? Okay. Donna, then Cynthia.
I think
Yes,
George
hi.
raised
Oh,
his.
I'm sorry. I didn't see George's. Donna, Cynthia, George. There we go.
Okay. Hi, did Southside also receive any federal relief programs due to COVID? I meant funding. I meant federal relief funding related to COVID, federal.
I want to say we did not. Dr. Can you confirm that for me?
You're talking about the small business loan that
Yeah, small business and nonprofit relief. Yep.
AFTU was yes, they were supported with that as well. That was, we had Tammy here at that point, so that was the beginning of the summer last year.
But I believe we only went for one PPP loan. I don't think we did a second round or anything like that.
So you're saying you think you got some money in 2020, but not 2021?
Yeah, no, we didn't sign it for 2021.
We did not sign anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
just 2020.
Thank
And
you.
I can get the details on that for you because we had, Tammy was here at that time, Dr. Tammy Baker. So we can get those details for you.
Okay.
Great. I had Cynthia and then George.
Hi, Cynthia.
Hi. So thank you. So you were describing that the planned use for the city funding would enable and cover administrative costs as well as Black Hen Universal and Black Girl Alchemist program. Yeah. We did receive your budget with regards to that. So for the staffing for Black Girl Alchemist, those two programs, as well as Black Hens Universal, are these city staff or are they paid staff of Southside Community Center? Are these youth programs that are coming under the oversight of the same kind of administration that you do for after school programs and so on with regards to training of paid staff and so on for these programs? Could you describe that a little bit, please?
Yes, primarily.
Yeah,
oh, go ahead, Kayla.
So with Black Girl Alchemy, I am one of the staff that work that program, but then we also have the lovely Rosanna. We are contracting essentially for the work that she does. She is not an official Southside employee. Right. And then outside of that, we don't have any city staff.
Okay, so these programs are just basically run by you and a private contractor? Okay, great. Thank you. And then with regards to Black Hands Universal and the programming that you plan to do this year, and maybe this is a question for when they come on later. So they are also requesting funding. It is in our contingency budget. How do these programs differ? Because now we have your organization that is working with Black Hands Universal. Black Hands Universal is requesting money for their own programs. So how are these different, or how are they the same?
That's a great
And
question.
why are they coming under the same umbrella through Southside?
Sure. So we as in Southside still serve as fiscal sponsors of Black Hands Universal. And so just really still, this would be the second year of serving as like an incubator, but it's its own organization, its own grassroots organization. That makes sense.
So in terms of the funding that you're receiving through the city for Black Hands Universal, is this for staffing? Is this, how is this working?
For the staffing and programming associated with Black Hands, yes. And that's just a small percentage of the increase of the funding that was offered.
Okay. And how many staff are working on that?
And in terms of Black Hands Universal, just one, Harry Smith.
Okay.
And in addition to, I know that through his programming in the summer, there were stipends associated with folks who helped with camp and things like that. But otherwise, it's solo.
Okay. And so the individuals who are running youth camps, are they receiving training and working with youth? Are they receiving pre-screening and other background administrative oversight because they are working with young people?
Absolutely. The great majority of us who are leading the programs are OCFS trained. We also have insurance to cover the multiple locations that the work happens, where the work happens. But yes, so there's always been someone associated with the Black Hands work linked with children that is in fact certified, trained, multiple degrees.
Okay. But so those individuals are not actually paid staff through Southside.
No, not
Yes.
necessarily. It's a combination of folks.
But then,
am I answering that?
But then but then for Southside, we have Southside paid staff that run our youth programs that are cleared, are doing the same training on so forth. And then did I see Marte, the program director that I was just speaking of, she's the one who is overseeing our after school program and our summer camp and youth or children / preteen programs.
Mhm.
And now
all of that training comes through the Child Development Council.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great. I think George was next.
Hi, George.
Good to see you. And Siobhan. And Kayla. I have questions. Is Harry going to be here tonight?
I'm checking right now. But yeah, I'll see if he can make it. I'm gonna give him a call now.
Yeah, we had that as a separate presentation after, we were going to do that after Southside. I don't see him in the waiting room, but.
Okay, I'll ask my Southside questions. Is the summer camp that was at West Village this past summer, I think was a success. Is that considered a Black Hands Universal camp or a Southside camp or both?
So the programming that happened at West Village this summer was actually under the umbrella of COMEP, the Community Unity Music Education Program, which is a program that my father and I run. And that has traditionally and historically and is ultimately housed at Southside Community Center. And so the relationship, the connection there, Southside helped to cover the insurance associated with our time in that space. And so CMEP was the primary programming. And then afterward was the Black Hands Universal climate change work. So it was an extension of CMEP just to keep to offer children programming from early in the morning until later in the afternoon. So that was the combination. And then in addition to that, on Fridays, we brought all the children down to Southside for movies and just adventure. So it was ultimately, the goal has been and continues to be to sort of bridge the gap and ensure that families feel a sense of belonging and connection to the Southside Community Center. But it was primarily under the umbrella of CMEP, of the performing arts program that I run.
And then Southside had a summer camp this summer that was free of cost. We opened it up to 30 families. We ran Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm. And that really focused on literacy as we were studying the dynamics of what our babies were experiencing throughout the year, or years, because we were discovering significant issues relevant to literacy, especially for Black children here in Ithaca. And so it was a very intentional initiative to engage our babies down at Southside in the literacy work, which is why there was this shift. Folks are accustomed to CMEP. Oh, babies. Donna, I call them all my babies, but really I'm talking 2-year-olds to 18-year-olds. And and so since we had secured a great number of our children to do the literacy program in the summertime, my CMEP team, we began to brainstorm a variety of spaces to do that work. And so we landed in West Village. So as we collectively think about the dynamics, we served many, many children this summer.
Thank you. 2 more questions. One real quick one. Does CMEP stand for something? Like, is it?
Yep, it stands for Community Unity Music Education Program.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And second, I'm going to ask this of everybody tonight. I'm curious to know, I realize the city only pays for part of the funding at Southside. I'd like to know if there's a significant amount of private donations, whether or not that's increasing or decreasing, and the same for grants. How are you doing in the grant business?
Okay, I can answer this one. So due to the pandemic, we actually did see an increase in private donations from our community, which we're very, very thankful for. And that was actually one of the reasons we were able to offer a free summer camp to all families. As for grants, like I said, now that we have a program director in the space, I am able to be more free, and I've been now working on new grants that we can write for at Southside. Continuing our typical grants. And also learning how to write grants. So I do see an increase in grants in the future. I am working diligently for that.
Mm-hmm. We've also submitted a proposal to Novo that we were invited to apply again, but that would be on an annual basis. Because remember, when we received that, it was for the 3 consecutive years. So we have received the invitation to apply annually.
However, with that grant, we potentially seen a decrease in funding. We're hoping that they don't, since their foundation is changing. We might have to keep.
Sure.
Great. Was that it, George?
Yep. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that has any questions for Southside? Seth and then Donna.
I just had a comment. I just wanted to say, I think it's really great to see all the new energy at Southside. And, I think particularly what you mentioned earlier about ribs, I think getting that program back up and running was really important. I think, and also that the ride, it was the Harriet Tubman ride was amazing.
Yeah.
It was just awesome. Yeah, it's just great. I mean, I'm really glad to see that everything's going so well and that got some good people who are working hard and yeah, like got a lot of great energy. So I'm happy to support this and keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Great, Donna.
Yeah, hi. I see, I've been looking at this budget that's labeled 2021 that we got at 6:01 p.m. from the mayor. And I see Black Hands Universal as an income item for just under $3,000. So I'm wondering how that happened, but I don't see it as an expense item. So that's one question. And my other question is there some kind of annual report that totals the number of programs offered and the number of people who participated and how many of those people are city residents and so on?
So with the budget, our bookkeeper Jacob, our accountant Jacob, he put that in as us fiscally sponsoring Black Hands Universal. So that's why you see like them in necessarily in the expenses. I believe it was just like the South Side, what Southside would receive. We're still working with him on the budget. And then as for the annual report, we did have an open house, our open house in June with some information regarding all of that. And we have a catalog that gives some information. But when it comes to like reporting as to municipals that we serve, that is something that we're working on strengthening. When it comes to our reporting, we don't like to put too much in those who come through the doors lives. So, we're, like I said, that's something that we're building right now. But we serve a lot of families on the hills because that is where our Black and brown families are. And we do, of course, serve those in the city of Ithaca.
Yeah, and as Kayla mentioned, still in the process of naming different and creative ways of collecting the data, right? The more formal, traditional ways that we serve and can get people to sign their names, but then there's it's constant service. So just making sense of creative ways to capture that. I tend to love pictures and stories, but I'm just all about the qualitative. But again, we are still working to strengthen our quantitative data. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, it's really important for us when we're making decisions about spending city money to know how many people are served in how many programs. And to quantify those kinds of things. It's certainly it's a criterion to be weighed about how many people are city residents, given that we're using city tax dollars. But I certainly understand that there's people from outside the city that you serve as well. But it's a good statistic to know. Thank you.
George, was your hand up again? Oh, no, I see it's down. You're good. Duxon, go ahead.
Can you just say a little more about what ribs looks like these days?
Yep, so right now we are tonight actually, so Thursday nights we have open shop from 4 to 8 every week. We have some weeks, right now we're working on an every other week basis. So the weeks that they're 3 days a week, there's a volunteer night, like I said, our open shop night, as well as we have R, which is an abbreviation for radical. Oh, it's radical something writers. The A's it's slipping my mind. So they're in the space working on bikes as well. And then we have our amazing consultant Claire Dem, who is also a part of Circus Culture, on meeting with our after school program and collaborating with the children there, on a weekly basis as well.
Yes.
And right now, we are also working on, like you said, new ribs, so that we can have a either a full-time or we're part-time employee there, so that we can increase our open shop days and just have the space open for our community members to work on their bikes, help fix up some bikes for programming, just to get them out on the streets for our babies and our families.
And the work that Kayla and Siobhan have been doing, it actually has us all falling in love with biking very differently. But I'm going to add all the artsy fartsy parts of things. So please, when you get a chance, check out the new mural. If you haven't noticed, I'm sure you have, along Meadow Street. And then in the back, we have an artist that came from Rochester and did this beautiful image of Major Taylor. And so we're really, really trying to educate ourselves and the community about his history. But also, we've shifted the mission of RIBS as well. And we're really talking about the ways in which cycling is linked to a different level of liberation for us and for our people. So yeah, definitely. Duxon, come visit RIBS. Come check it out.
Gladly. Thank you.
Great. And Cynthia?
Yeah, thank you. So to follow up on Donna's question, can you give us a ballpark idea of how many people were participated in the Black Girl Alchemist program, as well as the Black Hands United program during the summer? Do you have a ballpark number, and do you expect that number to increase, or are you looking for the same participation next year?
The Black Girl Alchemist, we are a very intimate group. So we had 15 to 20 girls in our summer session.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so that was a really core, consistent group of girls who participated with Kayla and Rosanna on a weekly basis. We were able to, take them camping and all of that. But in addition, when we've had art projects like the one that we're displaying this weekend, that has enrolled college students and even some of our mothers. So as Kayla mentioned, the core group is a good 15 to 20, but the events and the activities that they put on always welcome many, many more folks. So and we expect to have a great crowd this weekend as well.
I'd like to add that now that we do have a program director, she is focusing on middle school, which will take some of the young women away from the Black Girl Alchemist group to allow for some older, more older children to join. So then we will have two groups here before probably the year is out. We will have two Black Girl Alchemy groups, one that's focusing more on the coming of age and the middle school stressful time, but then keeping the high schoolers with financial freedom and an entrepreneurial group. And so we do see that the numbers are growing. Our girls are I'm calling Kayla a girl, like she's my peer, but she's still 20 years younger than me, but they are in the high schools right now because there has been stuff there, but they are there, they are recruiting more kids. So I do feel like by the end of this year, at least, if we don't have double, it'll be close to double the amount of young women in the program.
I was just about to unmute myself and just talk about how this week I've been in the schools a lot, and our girls are coming up. Kayla, when are we starting program again? When are we starting program again? Like, we gave them like a little bit, like a month and a half, because a lot of the girls also, they were transitioning from like that 8th grade to 9th grade year. So now they had like I'm a high schooler fear. So we gave them some time to like decompress a little bit. But like they literally were all like, I'm ready to start programming. I'm ready to start programming. Like, what are we doing for programming this session? Like, so they're really engaged and they look forward to this. Even the parents, asked them, when are you guys starting up again? Like, my daughter needs to be in your group. Like, she needs to come to Southside on a weekend and talk to you guys. And Rasana and I, all summer, we literally got praised by the parents on the work that we were doing and like the improvements that they've seen within their children that they did. And one story specifically really sticks to Rasana and I, and this was right before our little glamping retreat that we took the girls on. There was like kind of like a group split. So there was two groups in our BGA. They did the work together, and they got along, but they weren't like the best of friends. And there was this one specifically where the girls were like, we're not really feeling her. And so Rasana and I told them, like, you can't judge a book by its cover. You got to give her a try. And literally by the end of the retreat, that girl was sleeping in their tent. Like they took down all her social media and like super excited to start the school year. I seen them posting each other on social media, and that is the work that we push for, and that's the work that like makes me proud. I am a part of BGA, and I am a BGA leader.
That's right.
Great.
If I,
All
if
right.
I,
Go ahead.
sorry, if I could, Deb, I just wanted to announce to the group that I am expecting, I'm sorry to cut in like this. I am expecting a very time sensitive call that I will have to take. I hope it doesn't take too long, so I won't be away too long. So I wanted to just say quickly that first, I will arrange for Harry to come to a future meeting if he isn't able to make it to this one tonight. And I will make sure that council gets well in advance those written materials. I'm sorry for the flub today that you didn't get them well enough in advance. Also upcoming is the Unbroken Promise initiative. So I really support the Southside funding. I also support the Unbroken Promise funding. In the budget, I included 50,000 in support of their nonprofit work. Jordan then came back to us and said, look, we really want to move forward with this West Hill community envisioning. Could we also apply for ARPA funds? So you're going to see a pitch for increased ARPA funds that wasn't in my original budget. I support that request too. I believe the amount that they're seeking, and I support it in part because they're going to be going to other partners too in New York State, Tompkins County. I think that's really important that we help them get where they're going. And because Jordan's received such great mentorship from some of the folks on the call who've joined on the call. So I really support that too. So in the event that I'm on this call, and forgive me because life is just happening like that today, that I've got to step off, I will be back as soon as I can to answer any questions. But I just wanted to say that while there was a slight break in the action.
Can you just tell us, Savante, exactly what the amount is?
50,000 for the nonprofit and an additional 150,000 from ARPA funding.
So you're saying 50 was included.
50 was included, yes.
And so technically that 150 has to go on the list as an extra request from this organization.
Right. Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
Great. I think that's probably a good place to switch over. I don't see Harry. So I don't know, Nia, were you able to, no, okay. Then we'll figure out a different night for Harry to come. George, you're waving at me.
Just maybe Nia or the mayor can relay this to Harry. The things I'm going to ask about are specifically how much money is in the kitty from private funds, places like Cornell or Ithaca College. She's mentioned those places as donating money to Black Hands. I'd like to know that. And I'd also like to know specifically which unions Harry has made solid connections with and are online to support the excellent idea of the pre-apprenticeship program.
So which unions? George, do you mind texting me that?
Sure,
So I can
sure,
make sure I
happy
can-
to. Yep.
Okay. Oh, and here's the call.
Yeah,
Here's the
we-
call.
We could do that. I know Faith's been kind of the keeper of all of the questions of everything. So if you want to just email them to Faith and I, we can add that to the list and make sure that gets over to Harry. So great, George. Okay.
So
I'm trying to, in the interest of time, I'm trying to, oh, Graham, go ahead.
Thanks, Deb. Yeah, I had my hand up. I guess I didn't see it. But anyway, so Nia, Kayla, thanks very much, and your colleagues. We got this budget late, so I just wanted to clarify the 2021 projection is based on what you're seeing this year. Is that correct? Or
Yes, it is correct. If I'm not wrong, Dr. had our accountant updated fairly recently.
Yeah,
Okay.
just by the request, one with a 2% increase and one with a 4% increase. So that's how we had him work on it.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to check on that. Thank you.
Anything else for Southside before we move on to Unbroken Promise?
Just again, check us out at noon if you're free. Down at the Downtown Ithaca Children's Center, we'll be unveiling the mosaic of Dejour Gandhi Malone, a beloved teacher from the space and Ithaca native. So please come check us out if you're free.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Kayla, never apologize for little kids on Zoom. It's totally fine. We love it.
Ever. Yes. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, we're going to move over. I see Jordan. Who else did we say? Andy is here for? Well, we'll move people over and see.
And Gary, is Gary there?
I don't see Gary.
Okay.
Hello.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Andy.
Hello.
Jordan, can you tell me who else in the waiting area needs to get moved over?
Monique, my secretary. She in?
I'm moving.
Okay.
I see Yasmin as well.
Yep.
I think everyone else in there is city staff. If you see a notification that says promote to panelist, say yes. That's how we'll move you over. All right, that doesn't appear to be working, but Scott, maybe you can keep trying so I can keep the meeting going.
I've been trying and it doesn't seem to want to go over.
Okay. If you want to text her and tell her that she needs to accept the promotion to panelist, if she's in front of her computer, then we can move Yasmin in. I don't know if you have a way to contact her.
Yasmin's probably working off her phone, so that might be a complication.
Yeah, she is. She probably is right now working off her phone. She's not in the office right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll let Scott keep
I
trying
think
to.
she's here. Yasmin is here. They're trying to put you on.
All right. So what we'll do is, I think the way that this will probably work is we'll give you just a few minutes to give there she is, a really basic overview. And I think the majority of this time is to give council members an opportunity to just ask you any questions that they may have specifically about the funding request. So, and I know, did you say that you had a presentation per se, or were you anticipating giving the presentation? I know we did just send the presentation out to council. So are you interested? Do you know about how long that presentation is?
It's gonna be quick. It's a quick overview.
Okay, perfect. Why don't we have you go through that? And you should be able to share your screen. I think.
Okay. Nope, not yet.
Okay. I just fixed it. Can you do it now?
Yep. Well, first and foremost, I just want to say I appreciate y'all for having Unbroken Promise Initiative. We're currently in our office located on 317 Old Teganic Boulevard. As you guys can see, we have our young men from the West End, West Village community. We began our youth enrichment program, which we've been in effect for about a month. We just took our first trip to Rochester last week, and we'll be leaving again this weekend. But you know, as I've told them, every step of this process of building community and economic development and stability for a community is something that they need to witness firsthand because they are the future. So I just wanted to give them a shout out, and you know, they're excited about witnessing this process. So without further ado, I'm going to share the screen. So, you know, just a quick reminder, we have this image on the screen just to remind everybody of, you know, where Unbroken Promise Initiative stem from. We are here post murder of George Floyd in 2020. And as a result, you know, we led rallies, we had marches, and then we gave direction to our community, and then we took that direction and we brought it directly into the heart of our community and got to work, organize, mobilize, strategize, and that's how we got here today. Mo, can you start?
Yep. Sorry, 1 second.
Can you just introduce yourself before you start real quick?
Yeah, will do. I actually just lost the pages, so, you know, great day for technical difficulties. So I'm Monique Caraballo. I've been with UPI since the beginning of this year. I've helped with their communications, getting their social media established along with a team of amazing communications volunteers. And I also serve on the board as the secretary. So that's my role here. You can go ahead and switch, Jordan. Next slide for me, please. So as Jordan has stated, this initiative has emerged in response to the murder of George Floyd. Upon hearing the outcry of his son to take action and knowing that his hometown had to be pushed towards change to address systemic racial issues and oppression, Jordan organized and led rallies of 2,000 people single-handedly, compassionately challenging local residents to band together and allocate resources to the underserved communities of Ithaca's West Hill. Out of that movement, Unbroken Promise Initiative, a grassroots neighborhood revitalization and racial justice nonprofit dedicated to uplifting Black and Brown and underserved communities, was formed. Jordan's vision for Unbroken Promise Initiative, also known as UPI, is to foster growth and development of Ithaca's underserved community members, particularly in the West Hills for the moment. This is an area that houses the city's highest concentration of families living below the poverty threshold. And in the future, we do plan to create a model which will provide every vulnerable community around the country with the ability to move upward and onward safely.
Thank you for that, Mo. So now what we're going to do is we're going to present to you all a video. year ago, we began a journey from the perimeter to the center. The summer of 2020 saw the resurgence of the movement for Black lives across the nation.
We, the people of Ithaca, joined in that national cry for justice. We poured out our anger and pain into the streets for those who have continuously failed. Out of that anger and pain came the birth of the Untitled Chapter initiative. In August 2020, instead of relying on the powers that be to react and respond, we brought the spirit and intensity of the street protests to the direct service of our own community.
Over generations, gentrification has pushed Black people out from the physical and economic centers of Ithaca.
Our last refuge, the West End, has been underserved and over-policed. But in defiance of programs meant to break us, we will not submit.
Unbroken Promise Initiative sees community ownership, self-determination, and direct organized action as sources of justice and dignity for the West End people.
In just a year, UPI has legally incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit organization and established a board of directors as well as committees for our child care, mental health and wellness, community kitchen, community garden, and important projects. We established weekly West Village community meetings, obtained fiscal sponsorship, and raised $30,000 plus from individual donors. We organized and collaborated with a strong base of pro bono lawyers, architects, engineers, marketing professionals, designers, fundraisers, grant writers, researchers, nonprofits, and businesses in the pursuit of our comprehensive and inclusive mission. This work has inspired other cities to approach us about adopting UPI's model. Looking forward, UPI's goal is to continue to build our capacity in community support, building partnerships with organizations, local businesses, and nonprofits, and unionizing underserved community residents. We hope to continue raising capital to hire our first employees and plan for upcoming operating costs. We carry out UPI's planning phase for the West Village Community Center project, purchasing a plot of land to develop a Western Community Center, submitting the budget proposal to the city of Ithaca in November. In order to do this, we must unionize, organize, and mobilize within our community and our community abroad. In order to do that, we must continue advocating for adding UPI to the city of Ithaca's 2022 budget. To make your voices heard, please submit comments. We will continue to hold on to our foundation of bringing the West End to the center of Ithaca to create a center that is inclusive in its prosperity. We have begun to restore all that we've lost. We would also like to give a special thanks to the city of Ithaca, to the many community foundations and members near and far who have contributed to our journey thus far. But there's more to do. We must continue to heal our present and past generational traumas in order for this work to come to fruition.
That's why it's very important for not only the city of Ithaca to be involved, but also the communities abroad. Get behind your Black and brown, disenfranchised, and marginalized communities. To get involved in the fight, please go to www.unbroken.us. Thank you. Until we see you again, remain unbroken. A year ago, so from there, what stemmed from the rallies is, like I said, we got to work, and as you guys can see in that slide that you guys will receive, we created a proposal, which we dubbed the Case for Economic Stability for Disenfranchised and Marginalized Communities, which addresses barriers to access, education, and equity. And on your, when you guys get the chance, we'd like you to take a look at that. And then what we did was we collaborated with, we have an information and science committee, which is in charge of collecting all the data and the impact and research. And we went around to uplift and empower directly the communities in which we're serving, which we had to overcome, to hear what they had to say about what was necessary and what was required and what they would like to see. And we put that into a visualization data report. I hope you guys take the time out to take a look at that when you guys have a moment. It's very interesting. So our vision moving forward is to gain collaboration. At this point, we've gotten a lot of shakers and movers, a lot of influential and powerful people locally. We got their attention, and now what we're looking for, along with the community, is to get the city of Ithaca officially behind us. Formally, verbally. We've been working with the city of Labette last year on a number of different things, as Mayor Savante pointed out. But going forward, we weren't able to get into the city's budget last year, but hopefully we're hoping to actually get some significant funding to continue on with the mission, to fuel this mission, to fuel our initiative. This needs to be we believe this could be the model for the rest of the country. It's a long walk. It's a big task. It's a long walk to freedom, but it's our job as a community to come together and embrace every step. Just a quote from a West Village resident: "As one person, it is hard to have your voice be heard. So you need the community behind you. It's frustrating, and it's why people don't speak for change." Thank you. I appreciate your time. Now we're going to open it up for any questions.
Great, thank you so much. So I think we'll just turn it over to council if you have any specific questions. Donna?
Yeah, thanks for that presentation. I really enjoyed the images and the descriptions of the very positive work that you're doing. Did we get any kind of financial report or any kind of annual report that summarizes both the finances and the number of people participating in programs?
No, you guys didn't receive that. However, we do have that. It's not a problem for us to send that over. But in a nutshell, we raised almost $100,000. We received funding from Community and Park. We currently have right now on our first program initiative, because we didn't want to start any programming without licenses and people being vexed and all that kind of stuff, make sure that the background check. We actually collaborated with Just Play Project over the past summer. And so since they were already established, we ended up having a Just Play Project in a community summer camp for our youth. So they actually have that data as far as the summer programming. Currently right now, as you can see with the youth that we have here from the West Hill, this is just a small piece. We have actually 30 people from all around the community. So we don't have those numbers on it, but it's not a problem for us to get them. We have a whole budget report that, sheet. It's not a problem. However, we've witnessed that when Unbroken Promise or myself tries to collaborate or work with individuals, they seem to try to take our ideas or piggyback off. And I'm not no politician. I'm new to this space. I'm here for a reason, as you can see, the community. So I'm a little reluctant to kind of give certain information at this point, because I really don't know who to trust in this business.
Sure.
And I say business for a reason.
Sure. What kind of mechanisms do you have in place to track your programs? And I guess what I want to ask is, how do you measure the success of your programs? And I know that it's a lot of qualitative. I mean, obviously people are feeling helped, but are there mechanisms in place to measure something?
Well, honestly, we're just getting started with programming, but as far as impact, we do have an impact sheet where, I showed, Faith, the new, chief of staff, I did share that with her. We do have, numbers and impact, but just for short, just to answer your question from a broad point of view, we have collaborated with the city of Ithaca and the DIA on the DRI. And we actually, on the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, grant. And, our comprehensive plan to open up a West End corridor to provide people on the perimeter, bring them to the center of the community. That was actually our idea that we actually proposed to the city. I mean, excuse me, to the state. We actually received the DRI grant directly from the state in support of Unbroken Promise Initiative, and they would like to utilize, state and federal funding to fuel this initiative, because they see the bigger picture that if the model is built here in Ithaca, that they'd like to put an initiative like this in infrastructures, build infrastructures and programs and services like this that address the root of issues within marginalized and disenfranchised communities. They like to take the model and build these things all across upstate New York. So that's just one thing. That was for 10 million. Then we've also collaborated and we're working with TCAT on the electric mobility grant, which will address the transportation and access initiative that Ithaca has as far as people on the West End and West Hill. So
Thank
that's
you.
just a couple.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Great. I saw George and then Cynthia and then Graham.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks for coming in. Just so you know, that anybody that asks us for money, they're basically asking for city taxpayer money. And so it's our responsibility to ask about their financial situation and other potential sources of income. We do that for everybody. I'd like to know, you mentioned this DRI grant. Is that a grant you've already got?
No.
But you've applied for it?
Nope. The city, DIA actually applied. Gary Ferguson and his team actually overseen that grant. And there has not been any decision on that grant.
How much is the grant for?
10 million.
Very good. Could you please tell me, everybody's talking about the Army Reserve property on West Hill. Is that the place that you're focused on as having your programs? And
well, that is actually the spot that we believe is would be most beneficial, because it's centralized between the low income municipalities on the West Hill, West End. George, that's your ward that you represent. So, between Cedar Creek going all the way up to Overlook, that Army base is centralized right there. So we believe that, with housing, with community services and programs like a youth center, a community kitchen, workforce development, entrepreneurship development, a marketplace, community garden. We believe that with the things that address the root of our issues within our community, if they are in close proximity within our communities, we believe that people will have a true and honest pursuit of happiness and be able to preserve a healthy and sustainable life for themselves and their children, and so on and so forth. So to break the cycle, you need resources. And when revitalization and gentrification happen and the landscape of our community change, me being a sixth generation here in Ithaca, what I said was, what is it that we've lost that we once had that we no longer have being on the West Hill? And it was essentially easier access to resources like a youth center. I remember being able to walk to the South Side, being able to walk to GIAC, being able to walk to a PNC, being able to walk to Wegmans. Now, in the last 15 years, you see people walking up and down and around the octopus, walking in the winter months. If you look at that NPS project, the data visualization report, it'll show you that, from a transportation, we've been working on that with TCAT. The bus doesn't run as much as it does on the opposite side of the hill. And so what we're doing is we're not here to, to point fingers, or we're not upset. We're just here saying, this is the effects of what has happened. We are looking to work together to address some of the things to improve the quality of life for our city, for all people.
Thanks. You don't have to convince me that West Hill needs a community center. I'm just thinking ahead that this land is worth a lot of money. And it might be unrealistic to expect one entity to be able to buy all of it. Is that your plan, or is that still to be determined?
No, George. I believe that the bigger the vision for this project is that the children see that that people care about them. The community knows that, and recognize that, we could do a much better job than what we've been doing. So this is not, a Jordan Clemens show. This is not a UPI show. We've partnered and collaborated with a lot of stakeholders at the state level, county level, and city level, as well as foundations. And we are open to inviting anybody and everybody in, because that really has to be the example for the rest of the country, that no matter what side of life or what place you started from, what your cultural differences are, we have to come together. Because if we don't, 2020 is just the tip of the iceberg. As you can, and that's really what it's about. We don't expect for anybody to give us anything. As I said, we're here, or me personally, I'm here to be an example and a catalyst to show the community how to get more civically engaged, to learn this process. I came into this arena not knowing anything, but I had to learn. I had to be educated. I had to, I started from, I remember, right, Savante, like I came to ask Savante, can you teach me? Can you help me so that I could help my people, help our community, and show them? And it really has just spiraled since the first day that I got on that podium at downtown at the rally. I've taken no days off, and my community has seen, they know me before, so they know I'm serious about what I do and what I say. But it's been no days off, 7 days a week, 16 to 20, 24 hours a day. That's what it takes. And that's what has to be the example for these young people, to be inspired and uplifted and empowered, to let them know that just because we are born into a situation doesn't mean that we have to end there. And that as long as you understand and learn and are willing to do whatever is required to overcome your situation, the sky's the limit, regardless of your skin color, regardless of, where you started from. Are there barriers in Ithaca? Yes, I've experienced them even being in the space that I'm in. Gary Ferguson can speak to that. He's witnessed firsthand, he doesn't know if it was because of the color of my skin or what, but he's witnessed UPI had the funds to purchase a property on Clinton Street, us go to the bank after meeting all the expectations, and for whatever reason, we don't get any movement. We don't get denied, but we don't get any movement. And Gary could not understand that. And he shared that with the mayor. So he even, agrees that the color barrier here needs to be addressed. And so, no, we don't expect for people to give us anything. We could go to work for ourselves and earn whatever it is that we need to get whatever it is we need. We're not looking for a handout.
Thank you. I would encourage you, because a community center on West Hill is a big thing. It will be a very positive thing. There used to be the West End House, which was down on the flats, kind of at the edge of Cass Park now. That went away when they built the flood control channel in the mid 60s. People still talk about it. I would just encourage you to reach out to the entire West Hill community, because without discounting the importance of serving Black and brown kids and kids living in poverty, all the kids on West Hill can't get to a basketball court without crossing Route 13. They most are not affiliated with LACS. So everybody on West Hill could use a community center. Thanks.
Great. I had Cynthia and then Graham.
Graham's next.
Oh,
Are you, is it okay, Graham, if I go?
Sure,
Oh,
go
can I-
ahead. Cynthia.
Hold
Go
on,
ahead.
before we move, can I just answer George? George, I totally agree. And what I would like your help in, and the kids have witnessed this, we've gotten all of our insurance and liability paperwork done, and I paid for that investment for our program. And we submitted that to the Ithaca City School District, and we still have not been able to. I talked to Deborah Pat up there at LACS and told her about our program. She said she loved it. You know, she would submit the facility use application to the ICSD, and we have not heard anything back. So, you know, with your with your support, we would really appreciate, the children would appreciate that, because what we're doing right now is we're shuttling all these youth, you know, from the West Hill all the way to a gym in Freeville.
Really? So what you want to use is the gym?
Yeah, and we have the paperwork already.
I'll use my minuscule powers and I'll talk to a couple of people in the school board. Thank you for that heads up.
The guy is. Thank you.
right now it doesn't matter. I had Cynthia and then Graham, but it doesn't matter to me which order you're going.
I'll just follow George if that's okay. And he has more cred than he gives himself credit for. Thank you, Jordan. And you know me, I'm gonna sort of get down into the nitty gritty, which you fully expect, I'm sure. So basically, what I'm aware of is we have two requests. We have $50,000 in contingency to be spent sometime during the year. And then the mayor has just informed us of an additional, is it 150,000, Mayor, to come out of ARP funds?
Yes, that's my suggestion. Yes.
So, thank you. So, starting with the contingency funding, if I understand correctly, sometime during the year, you'll come to the city with a plan for the services that you're going to be providing in return for that 50,000 in funding. And what are those services exactly? Are these the youth programs that you're talking about now, or is there something else? And how many people do you anticipate you'll be serving?
So the 150,000 and the 50,000 was a gracious counter to what I asked for from the city. I originally asked for 2.8 million. All right.
Okay, well, let's start with the 50,000 and let's focus on that because that's in front of us.
No, because you know, we actually need more to do what we need to do. You know, we actually need more. The magnitude of this project and how vital it is for these youth and this community on the West Hill, it requires a much more bigger commitment to this process, because you know, you have as a developer, you know, the process of development is expensive, and the investment into the community is enormous. And so when you talk about the development world and you talk about the process of design and planning and concept and you know, schematics and construction documents, and then you go through municipal approvals and then engineering. You know, you're talking about upwards for this project, you're talking about for at least, you know, $500,000. You know, and so I have to state that, you know, essentially what I would need personally is 500,000 for planning, and then 350,000 for the nonprofit to hire 6 administrative people to really fuel the nonprofit and the community and program services aspect of my program. Now, 150,000 and 50,000, we'll take whatever we could get. We'll leverage whatever it is that we need to do, because that's what we do as a community. That's what we do as a people. We are always being told what our value is and being given the scraps while everybody else is reaching and clawing. But the reality of it is to answer George's question, when these grants, if we win these grants, we expect for that money to be funneled to UPI, because we, in our pain and our struggle and our comprehensive ideas, went into those proposals. And they will continue to go into those proposals and grants. And what we know and what I've seen and observed is that when money comes through, you know, everybody else has their hands out and everybody else is benefiting. And then at the tail end of it, the people who are Black, the people who are marginalized, the people who are under-resourced are an afterthought, and we're the last ones to get. So I had to tell you what it is that I believe we need. Now, whatever you guys give, that's your decision. You guys have that power. It's your city. We're just living in it, surviving in it.
All right, so can I break this down a little bit farther then?
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, and I'm looking at your county level proposal that there was a link to in the presentation you made tonight. So you are looking to purchase or acquire 2 properties. You're asking for right now in these 2 sets, $200,000 that will assist in either the planning or administration or the purchase of the properties that will be owned and run by your nonprofit. Is that correct?
No.
Is this for the city to purchase property for a city project, or is this for the city to put seed funding into a project that will be owned and operated by the nonprofit?
We won't be the only nonprofits running whatever programming is at the site that we purchase. But yes, the money that we need is to purchase and acquire land. Yes.
So you're asking for taxpayer money to fund a parcel that will be owned by a organization that's not the city.
Yeah. By the community, yeah.
Yeah. So if I may, if it's okay to jump in here, the funding, as I understand it, and Jordan and team, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but where we are right now is actually in the planning stages. So the Army Depot parcel is not even available yet. The federal government still has it. We're hearing rumors that they may put it onto the market at some point soon. This 150,000 wouldn't go into the purchase price. It would go into community building and planning, designing, public input for what could be developed over there on West Hill. Now, it's possible that a year from now, Unbroken Promise comes back to us with and says, hey, look, we used those funds, we developed a plan, look at all the community meetings, look at the design charrettes we did, look at the engineering, and the Army Depot is available. We're interested in applying for it, and maybe they've cobbled together a whole pot of extra funds. But this is really planning. This is in some sense like we would be an angel investor, not in the business sense, but in the, forgive me. So let me back up just a little bit. The need is clear and undeniable, and not everybody on council knows that. And we are locked in a chicken and egg scenario in which we're like, geez, it doesn't seem like we need a community, we need a center of community there, we need economic development programs there, we need better transit connections there. And yet, because we need all those things, we don't have the capacity building tools to prepare for these opportunities. So something's got to give. Somebody's got to step forward and put in some initial seed funding to grow capacity building tools. That's what this 150,000 is for. So to answer your question directly, because I think it's a good one, you're like, is this fund's going towards purchase of land? And if so, where's the land and what's the plan? That's not yet where this is going. This is still at the planning community engagement phase. And it's best to think of UPI in that sense as a community-based consultant that's going to be doing organizing and gathering community input on the way towards a development on West Hill.
So if I can very quickly, I think it is important. I think the need is there. I think the need is actually a lot larger than what we are talking about when George and I are talking about the First Ward and West Village Apartments and Chestnut Hill, because yes, in terms of our census tract, we are the largest. We have Overlook, we have Lindeman, Creek Apartments, we have Conifer, right? 3 huge developments on the West End in the town, triple, quadruple the size of what we have in the city. And there is no community center for these large projects in the West End that serves this larger underserved community. So I think as we look at this, including the town, looking at beyond the city's involvement in serving this community, I think is important because, again, why in the city do we end up carrying the water for services that extend beyond our borders? But I think so thinking about that, other pools of money, other partners, other contributors in this vision, I think is going to be important. I also want to know then, again, I'm going to get down into the nitty gritty. So what's the 50,000 in contingency then? Is that a separate thing? Is that part of this? I guess I was confused in thinking that the 50,000 would be used for after school programming and youth programs and so on, but I'm not hearing that at all. I'm hearing that the 50,000 is actually folded in to the 150,000, and this is for community building and designing and charrettes and planning and so on.
Yeah.
Is that right? I just want to make sure,
Yeah.
because we didn't receive any materials until tonight, and I'm just trying to understand what is being asked of us here.
Yeah. My proposal is for the 50,000 to be spent on the direct service work that UPI does. So not the community building and planning towards a community center, but the 50,000 would support their current engagement activities like the after school programming and the basketball.
Okay, and so we will be, in order to release it from contingency, we would get a description of exactly what it is that's being funded, correct?
Right.
Thank you. I'll let other people go. Thank you.
Great. I had Graham next.
Thank you,
And
Jen.
George, is your hand up again or is that from before? Okay, so you can go after Graham.
Okay. Jordan, so thank you for that presentation. And, I certainly appreciate the kind of local community work that you're doing in terms of economic development. I mean, I think trying to address those inequities obviously is something that I think council is very sympathetic to. But I just want to emphasize, you talked about trust. I mean, I think we need enough information to be able to make a good decision. We've got a lot of requests for funding support. So as much information that you can share with us about how these funds will be spent and what it'll mean to your longer term plan. So what will this, I guess, the ARPA funding, what will that enable you to do? Because as George says, we don't have a lot of, we're not a bank, we're not a foundation. We're basically trying to spend taxpayers' money in the best way possible. And the only thing we can really do is try and balance all the demands with all the information we have. And I certainly, want to make sure that you understand, I think everyone hopefully understands this, that we don't have this cash on hand. It's the taxpayers' money, and it's coming through property taxes, which is a very regressive tax. You mentioned gentrification, and that's a real issue, as you know, in the city. And property taxes are one of the drivers of gentrification. You know, I mean, I think lower income people in particular are really affected by property taxes. So I hope you'll be patient with us and bear that in mind, and give us as much information you can about how this funding is going to be used and how it will enable you to achieve some of the bigger goals. Because I know not even Steve has $2.8 million tucked away anywhere. So we want to help you get that in the best way possible. So thank you.
Yeah, Graham, I appreciate that. And, you know, I know that the city is strapped. My thinking was that, you know, ARPA, you know, the pandemic really showed everybody a lot. And so my thing was, you know, and the reason why I had to get into economic growth, right, is because that's essentially what we need as a community. You know, we have to get away from, you know, things that are not everlasting and sustainable, like, you know, like certain programs, right? And we got to get to addressing, you know, the bigger picture. You know, we have to start thinking bigger. Sure, it's difficult, right? But, you know, difficult is difficult until you try it, you know, until you learn it. You know, I didn't get here and get to in front of you all by looking at my life like it's difficult, so I'm not going to try or I'm going to quit, right? I had to overcome and get out of situations like we have currently today on West Hill, you know, in West Village and Chestnut. I come from that. Those are my family members. Those are my community. Even though I've overcome it, I'm still connected. I'm tied there, you know. It's like, so I just say that to say, like, the reason why 2.8 was on the table is because from an economic development standpoint, right, which is, you know, that's cost a lot of money when you talk about building a community center or even getting into housing. You know, like I just talked about the development process. You know, I know that that's expensive, and luckily I have Andy, I have Noah, I have local developers like John Gutrich and Lincoln Morris, you know, who have been there to be mentoring me, like I said, since last year. I've been on a developer's crash course. And so when you talk about information, the mayor said, you know, we want to get behind you. And he said, I'm gonna be working closely with the city. Like, you know, so it's not like you guys aren't gonna know what's going on. I'm gonna be going to the chambers, working with Faith, working with the mayor, you know, so it's, you know, it's a collaborative effort, and I'm learning in this process. So thank you.
Graham, was that it?
Yep, that's it.
Great. I have George again. Think you're still muted, George.
How about now?
You're good.
Thanks. I'll go quick because I went once already, but when we started talking about planning and the cost of making plans for a future potential community center / housing development, it occurred to me that we have a planning and economic development department in the city of Ithaca, and it's a pretty good one. It's a very good one. And I see no reason why they can't turn their attention to development on the West Hill, sponsored by low-income brown and black people, any less than they do downtown with the big developers. So I'm wondering if it would be better than to put $150,000 towards this planning to simply use our city staff and in collaboration with Unbroken Promises or whomever. That's my thought.
Well, I have been working with Tom Knipe, and you know, you guys do have a great economic development and planning board and people down. And I've been, you know, like Mayor said, I've been advising, you know, I've been consulting to understand what resonates and how to uplift and empower the people where we come from. You got to be of the people. And Ithaca has not had that. I've been preserving our culture here almost single-handedly my entire life. So for you to say, why don't we just do this? You know, that's really a slap in the face to our community to think that that the city could just come up with something, use some money, slap a community center up and some housing and think that that's going to solve the issue.
That's
No,
not
you
what
have
I
to-
said, Jordan. That's not what I said.
No, but the way, hold on, can I speak?
Sure, go ahead.
For you to say, why don't we just give 150,000 to and keep it within, you know, that's kind of like the problem. You know, that's part of the reason why there was a civil uprising. You gotta invest into the people who know the people so that they could collaborate, right, with people who know their people and have the people be a part of it, that these things are supposed to be intended to help so that these things are most effective in a positive way, not in a negative way. And that way our resources are not wasted.
And I have asked George, to your question and to Jordan's point, I've asked that Jordan and the UPI team start to begin working in partnership. I've tasked especially Faith because of our long experience in community development and our engagement with all sorts of areas of government from the state to the federal level on down. And Gary Ferguson, who's had a lot of experience running an agency that is, of course, outside the city of Ithaca government, but is intended to boost up the economic and social prospects of a certain neighborhood. And Gary's run an organization, as we know, that over the last couple of decades went from being, I think it was like a $50,000, $60,000 a year organization, and has grown it. And so I think those two, especially as the major touch points and partners inside the city, will take what Jordan's talking about, which is the lived experience, the native expertise that he brings as West Hill resident, and combining it with that other know-how to get the best of both worlds.
Well,
and Jordan UBI, they've agreed to work with them hand in glove.
That speaks to my point, which I want Jordan to understand, is that the planning department and economic development office should be at the service of Jordan and people like Jordan just as much as they are for the big developers who are building big developments downtown. That should be our task.
Any other questions? I'm also trying to be sensitive of time. We have a big department and capital projects slated for this evening, and I think we did get some good information sent to us about UPI as well. So I think what we could do is, if there are any additional questions, we can just collect them and pass them along. In between Faith and I, we can make sure that we get whatever we need from Jordan and his team moving forward. So I'll just ask if there's any last questions before we go to our department. Anyone?
So
Great.
I would just want to say something briefly. You know, I met with a lot of people in this space, and like I said, I'm new to this. I'm coming from, you know, a youth development background. You know, I spent my whole entire life trying to figure out this cycle and break it within my own family, which then which God put me on a path to then have to scale up and break it for our community, and then scale up and break it for potentially an entire marginalized community, you know, a marginalized population around the country. We are all dealing with the same things, and they're not always the exact same way. For example, many people at the rallies didn't even know that West Hill and there was even poor people here in Ithaca. You know, these are the kind of conversations that I was having, but I knew that because people in Ithaca live in a bubble. You know, the model is 10 square miles surrounded by reality. So a lot of people are living and they have the privilege of living in a state of euphoria, while we in our community have to deal with reality and deal with life as it is, as it comes. And I, within my community, from here in Ithaca, from the marginalized community at the age of 6, was told that no one cared, that you don't have a support system, you were gonna have to figure it out. And you were gonna have to do whatever was required. And your mother and father wasn't gonna be there, and your grandmother was gonna have to take care of you, and you being the oldest, you were gonna have to sacrifice. That is a life that I know and I realize that people in Ithaca, they do not connect and they do not resonate with that. And I know that because if you did, you wouldn't be saying people like Jordan. There isn't people like me.
Jordan, I think you're frozen. I do see Gary.
Jordan's going to continue from my computer. The camera won't come on, that's all.
Huh?
The camera won't come on, that's all.
Hello?
Jordan, yeah, whatever you were using before, you were frozen.
Yeah, so, just to finish up, to get to where I'm at, you had to have done things that people weren't willing to do. In order to break the cycle, you have to be willing to charter a path that no one before you was willing to take. So I provide a unique perspective and a reference point in that. And so I appreciate Mayor Myrick trusting and believing in me, because I shared some stories with Mayor Myrick about just the uphill battle that it has been with trying to get people to understand. People pretend and want to say that they understand what's going on in West Hill. You don't know, and you will never understand what it's like to be Black in a majority white, affluent community. You will never know. And to be culturally competent, all we're asking for is for people to really understand that. That's all I want to say about that. There is no one like me. You have to have integrity. You got to have conviction. You got to have purpose. You have to do whatever is required, whatever it takes to get the job done. You don't abort the mission. And nothing comes before this. You have no family, no kids comes before this mission that I'm on right now. You have to be willing to get that level of commitment and devotion. And if you don't understand that, then I don't know what to tell you. It's not meant for you to understand. And now I'm just going to end with that.
Great, thank you, Jordan. Gary has asked to say a couple words, so we're wrapping up the topic, Gary, so I'll give you the floor for a couple minutes.
Sure, thank you very much. I will only just take one or 2 minutes, but I wanted to weigh in to offer my support. And I've been working with Jordan and UPI for almost a year now. And I think this is a great opportunity. You have the opportunity to work with a community group that's really trying to grow, that's trying to be representative, and that's really trying to make a difference. And I think the idea that was put together here, putting some a detailed plan together for the Army Depot site and how that would engage the West Hill community is a real worthwhile thing. And I can just say that certainly I'm prepared to work with the group and with Jordan to continue this process and to help develop that along. So again, I just wanted to offer whatever support and enthusiasm I can for have you guys help bring this along. I think it's a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. All right, I think we will move on. Jordan and everyone at UPI, thank you so much. Thank you especially to the group of youth that we saw sitting behind you. It's really great to see engagement from everybody. So we start to teach everyone how government works and how city budget process works and all of the different pieces, that make this work. So thank you to everybody. We will be in touch if we need more information from you. And I think we'll move on with the rest
Before
of
we
our.
go, with respect to Andy, I'd like for Andy to say a couple of words too, because he's been on this project for a year.
I'll be brief. I think it's important for folks to understand that we're all helping build this young organization. So when we look at the Army Reserve, that's like this ideal grand site that could really capture everything that UPI is trying to develop on the West Hill. But we're also looking at other properties that are smaller, seed properties that can get UPI's feet wet in development, in pro formas, in funding projects, generating income. So yes, you got to shoot big, but we also are looking at other projects that would, make the funding go much farther for 2022.
Okay. Are we good to move on to DPW?
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
All right, now let's see what we can. I'm just moving everybody in. Scott, can you do that while I try and do the rest of them? Sorry, I'm trying to move people over and it's not working. All right, Scott's got it. Okay, great. So let me just ask everyone, we're at about 10 of 8. We have DPW, but then we also have capital projects. What is I just want to take your temperature, I guess. What is your feeling on moving capital projects to the next night and just talking about DPW tonight? I see thumbs up-ish from a couple of you, few of you. Okay, so that might mean that Liz may not need to be here. Liz, I think you were here only for capital projects, right? Okay, so sorry to make you wait around, but go enjoy the rest of your night. And then it'll be on the same night that your department is presenting anyway. So we'll see you for that. Okay. And I see Shelley and Tom. You can move them over if you want. I don't know that they're related to DPW or if they wanted to talk about capital projects, but we can check in with them and see what they needed. Hi, Tom and Shelley. We were just moving you out just so we got all the staff in here to just see that there wasn't anything specific that you needed before we got into DPW.
I was interested in the previous discussions, but I was here for capital projects primarily. Did I hear you say that we're going to move that to another night?
That is correct.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing you all another night.
Great. Thank you, Tom. And thanks for your assistance with the UPI project as well.
You're welcome. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, and I was just here, I was just listening as a concerned citizen and resident. That's all. I don't.
All right, Shelley. Well, you can continue to listen and you are welcome to chime in at any time you like. So just let us know. Okay. So I think what we'll do is move to DPW, then that'll be our last department topic for this evening. So with DPW, we had a couple of questions submitted ahead of time, and I think Faith has emailed the answers to those questions around. And we did have a request above the mayor's budget for DPW, which is to retain an assistant transportation director. But I think what I'll do is I will open the floor to see if anyone has any specific questions just for the DPW department in general, and then we'll get to the request above the mayor's budget. What are your DPW questions? Oh, and we can go over it. So the questions that were asked ahead of time were the parks and forestry project for $50,000. I see Mike. I don't know if Mike wants to speak to that quick.
Yeah, sure. The request came in originally as a capital project for about $150,000, and this is to help prevent erosion along some of the shorelines, specifically at Stewart Park near the boathouse. And it was kind of a wild guess as to how much that project will really cost. And so rather than, we sort of switched gears a little bit on that. And what we decided to do is to, instead of put $150,000 into that particular project, what we asked for was an additional $50,000 in our stormwater fund to take care of these issues in the future. So we're going to have other shoreline erosion problems besides Stewart Park. They come up all the time. And so that seemed like a good solution to just start adding a little bit more to our stormwater budget with the idea that we can include shoreline restoration and erosion protection into the future on various projects.
Great, thanks. George, is your hand up for this or something else for DPW? You're muted. You're still
How about
muted.
now?
There you go. Now you're good.
Okay. So Mike, I can see putting more money in the stormwater fund for future problems, but that doesn't address the problem the 150,000 was supposed to solve. So what happens to that erosion at Stewart Park in the meantime?
Well, George, what I said before is we don't know what that's going to cost. We sort of threw a number of about 150,000 at it. We think it probably will fit into the 50,000 budget range if, especially if our own crews are able to do most of the work. So it made sense putting that money into the operating fund.
To my mind, the federal funds we're getting could really help us a lot with infrastructure. All the things that we've put off for a million years, the dam at 6 Mile Creek being a huge example, but all these creeks that run through the city, 6 Mile Creek's getting higher and higher, and flood possibilities are getting greater and greater. So I'm kind of partial to these infrastructure projects to use this federal money for. That's an editorial comment.
Sure, and I can sort of just mention what our strategy is. One of the things that we asked for and is included in the mayor's budget was some money that we can put towards hiring consultants that can help us find and apply for and manage various grants. I'm working with Scott Doyle at the county. And I just got an email from FEMA today about some of our levee systems. And what we'd like to do is use grant consultants to help us find those grants that can help us with various flood control projects. We did that local flood hazard analysis study a couple of years ago, and they came up with some very specific recommendations for the creeks. I put a number at about $5 million to perform that work. And that would include increasing the height of a lot of the berms that run along 6 Mile Creek and Cascadilla Creek. And not necessarily building up berms, but putting in some type of flood wall system or emergency flood wall system. That still needs to be determined. One of the things we also found was along Fall Creek, we're seeing quite a bit of erosion in the levee. on Fall Creek. And so that would be included in a project like that. That project is so large, we're just going to have to chase grant money. And we know that there's a lot of money sitting out there, and hopefully an infrastructure bill will be passed soon. But my gut feeling is a lot of the money is going to come through in the form of grants. And so we're just trying to get ahead of the game a little bit and plan for using outside consultants to help us obtain that grant money.
Great. Other questions about DPW before we get into the request above? Laura?
Yeah, thanks, Deb, and thanks, Mike. You just mentioned the local flood hazard study from a few years ago, and a question that has been raised by many constituents of 5th Ward, 2nd Ward, city residents has to do with the anticipated increase in flood insurance that looks as though it could be pretty substantial for some folks. Are you able at this point to comment on that?
Yeah, I can. So the email that I got from FEMA today, they would like to meet with myself and a few other DPW staff. I'm also inviting Scott Doyle from the county. They're going to give us a sneak peek at what the new FEMA maps are going to look like. And so odds are that they're going to change from the 1981 flood maps, which are the current regulatory maps. So we'll be curious to see what that looks like. We've also been talking to FEMA about implementing some of the flood control measures that were identified in that report, and what the process would be if we were to implement those measures. How long would it take, and what is the process to get what's called a letter of map revision through FEMA so that they could officially change the regulatory maps? I think all of this takes time. I think I would guess probably 10 years if we were looking at obtaining grants to do the work, file these letter of map revisions to FEMA and get them approved. I would say it's probably a 7 to 10 year process to get that done. But we're taking the first steps right now. So.
Okay, thanks. Can I just ask a quick follow-up?
Sure.
So the existing FEMA regulatory maps are from 1981. And maybe you said this and I missed it, I apologize, but when will the revised maps be released so that the city, you would know what we'd be looking at and therefore make a determination on what to include potentially in a proposal or a letter of map revision? So when would these new maps come out?
So a couple of years ago, they had told us that the official maps should be released in 2024. I'm kind of encouraged that they're meeting with us sometime in November to show us what the draft maps look like. So maybe they're a little bit ahead of schedule. The one thing that FEMA has done is they have adopted the models that we prepared during our local flood hazard analysis. These are the models that were prepared by the USGS. They're tweaking them a little bit. They're probably going to be a little bit less conservative than the maps that we prepared in that flood study. I don't know. I'll certainly ask FEMA that question. I think it was early 2024 when they originally projected, but who knows? It could be 2023 or late 2022 for all we know. It might be ahead of schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Cynthia, is your question or comment related to this FEMA or is it something else? Okay, I also see George. I don't know who was first. unless George, yours is up from before.
I have a question about something else.
Okay. Cynthia, then go ahead. Cynthia and then George.
First of all, I really have to apologize. I'm backing up to the previous question about the $50,000. So, and again, there's just too many things going on. So the $50,000 is a request above the budget to go from the general fund into the stormwater fund. Am I correct?
No, that was money that was originally requested as a capital project. But because we think we're going to be spending more and more on stormwater infrastructure and improvements and repairs, we decided to just go ahead and put that into the operating budget. And I saw your question in the chat as to where that money would be coming from, the $50,000. That would be coming from the stormwater fund, not the general fund.
Okay, so you're taking $50,000 out of the stormwater fund to add into the operating budget to support stormwater work.
The stormwater fund is in the operating budget.
Well, I guess I see it in a different column, and I know that, for example, stormwater has like $500,000 in reserve. So I was just trying to figure out where this was coming from. I think I understand now. Thank you.
George, go ahead.
My question is about the Fifth Street. So Donna, I think Donna's ahead of me on that. So how about she goes
Great.
first?
Is that a capital project or a DPW?
It's DPW, but it's ambiguous to me whether it's a capital project or an ARPA project. It says capital funding application, so I guess it's capital.
Right. So remember, capital and ARPA are sort of in the same land. I mean, I suppose.
So does that wait till next week?
Yeah, I think we'll try to go through all the capital and ARPA ones. Right now, what we're talking about is just the actual department budget for Public Works.
Okay, but I don't like mixing up ARPA and capital.
I don't think they're mixing it up. I think they're following the process because ARPA is going to have a pretty complicated reporting process so that the way that capital projects are currently tracked probably mirrors nicely the way they're going to have to provide reporting on ARPA.
Right.
So if you look on the capital project sheet, there's a column that says whether it's a capital project or whether it's ARPA funding, but they're using the same sort of tracking and organizing system for both capital projects and ARPA. I don't know if Steve, you want to say any more about that?
No, that's correct. So we have very stringent reporting requirements with the ARPA funds. So we want to be able to track all of every single expense that we do with the ARPA funding. So that's why we're showing it in this fashion.
Okay, but the Fifth Street thing is capital, so we'll do that next Wednesday.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Can I substitute an entertaining question?
Go ahead, George.
I noticed for some reason I started looking at clothing for all the departments, and it's kind of interesting to look at. But I noticed that for the commons, clothing in the last 2 years, budgeted clothing has gone from $600 to $4,000. I'm wondering why that is.
They want to be better dressed.
George,
I
I'm
guess
going to look at that. I know that the clothing allowance is normally funded through part of the labor contracts to provide boots and things like that. I'm not sure why it went up so much. Honestly, small, we deal in pretty large numbers in DPW, so
Yeah, so I'm kind of wasting your time, I realize, but
or whatever came up.
that's all.
Great. We'll look at it. Okay, anything else about DPW? And before we get into the request above the mayor's budget from DPW? Duxon, Donna, Cynthia.
What's the strength of the street crew like this year, and what do you expect next year? I was chatting with Mark Verbanek, and he was talking about how difficult it is to, or was to hire for this season, and what do we look like budget-wise for next year?
Well, budget-wise, well, there's two issues there. One is nobody's applying for jobs right now. And I think everybody in the country is trying to figure out why that is. So it's not just us, it's the rest of the country as well. I'm not sure when that trend's going to break. You know, does it break next spring? Does it break when everybody's, you know, when more people are vaccinated? I'm not sure what the breaking point is. It's really up to individuals, I guess. And there's a lot of them who are choosing not to look for work right now. Assuming that things pick up, you know, after the new year, and we could staff ourselves up to what we're budgeted right now. I think in 2021, DPW got, we lost 10 positions. Most of those positions were in streets and facilities. And so we've tried to, you know, we submitted a 2% budget, which the mayor has pretty much followed straight down what our request was under the 2% budget. We tried to restore as many of those positions in streets and facilities as possible. We had a working supervisor in the sign and striping shop that was unfunded, so we've been able to fund that position again. We also had a mechanic position that was refunded. The crews that we had asked for a couple of years ago and we got funding for, all of that disappeared. And in this, in the 2022 budget, we're trying to restore as much as possible. We did that through seasonal funds. We increased the seasonal funds in the highway group and also the stormwater group. But it's not nearly what we had before. And we understand that, you know, there's a lot of competing needs in the city and things like that. But we felt like if we could slowly start building that, our crews back up, assuming that we'll get applicants sometime next year. What we've been able to do is the amount of additional seasonal money that we've been able to put back in is equal to about 2.5 part-time positions. You know, 2.5 positions that will get us through the construction season. So it's not a lot, but it's something. And just with the unknowns around, you know, the lack of applicants, you know, we think that's probably a reasonable amount. Hopefully next year's budget will be a little bit better and we'll be able to restore some more of those crews. So
Appreciate that. Yeah, the way people complain, you'd think every street in the city was shut down, but I know we all want more actually during the season. Thank you.
Great. I Donna and then Cynthia.
Doc asked my question already.
Okay, great. Cynthia.
So actually, I'll carry on with an extension of Dustin's question, then I'll ask my question. So is ARPA funds eligible to restore those positions that we lost in 2021 with regards to the street crews that we had funded pre-COVID and then had to lose their funding because of budgetary impacts? I mean, can we now fill those positions and try or fund those positions and try to fill them with ARPA funds?
That's a question for Steve. I really don't know.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, we could use funds for that purpose if we wanted to, through any loss of positions due to COVID. We could use those funds for that, and we could use our loss of revenue funds. In addition, we could use those funds for that particular purpose if we wanted to go in that direction.
Was there a reason that we didn't go in that direction? Because, definitely our infrastructure has been long neglected, and our hope had been previous COVID to actually make advances in addressing these issues. So now it seems a good time, presuming we could actually hire people. What was the reasoning to not fund these positions that we lost due to COVID?
Yeah, part of the answer to that question is what I'll actually be calling the Fleming principle from now on after last week's meeting, where Donna cautioned against
You're frozen.
Sorry, you got frozen.
But I know what he's going to say now.
Right, well, I know. Oh, you're
using
back,
the
you're back,
other
you're
one to
moving.
sign on
You
to
got
the
frozen,
committee.
sorry.
Oh, sorry, did I freeze?
Yes.
Sorry, did I freeze?
Yes.
Yeah, so not using the one-time ARPA funds to sign the city up for recurring expenses, which of course these positions would be. I think it could be reasonable to pursue using ARPA funds to maybe get a bunch of street work done. Water and sewer is more complicated to do via contract with outside consultants, but that might be a direction we could pursue.
There's one other possibility too. If for some reason people start looking for jobs again in DPW, we could always turn to our CHIPS funding as well to hire additional seasonals. So that's the CHIPS money is a little bit more flexible, and we did get a chunk of money that we weren't expecting, an extra 2.2 million, something like that, that supplements CHIPS funds. So, a lot of this, I think, is kind of wait and see what the job market looks like early next year.
I mean, I definitely appreciate that, and the constraints in the job market. And I appreciate, Donna's concern. This is very different than the firefighters that we had funded for just 3 years. We had actually built this into our budget. This is something that we had planned for and had funding for within our budget before. And so I feel like we have the foundation to bring this back. And I would like to see the hiring of a permanent crew versus part-time seasonal, because there's just so much expertise that you get to build over time when you have a group of people who are working dedicated and working together, and get to know the infrastructure really well. So I hope this is something that we can consider in the coming years. Now to go to my question, which is I'm bringing forward something that was emailed to me. People are asking, why are we seeing the 4% increase in the water fund and the sewer fund at the same time? And could we talk about the thinking behind raising both of those? I'm sorry, not the fund, the rate. Why we're raising both those rates by 4% this year?
Yeah, I can answer. I mean, the general reason is because we've been using fund balance from those funds where we had significant fund balance in those funds. We've been using that quite a bit in both of those funds to balance our budget as costs continue to increase, and we keep the rate for water and sewer rates as low as possible, and lower than they really should be. I mean, the rates over the last 5 years should have been a lot higher than they were. We were using fund balance to help offset any increase in or additional increase in the rates. So that's the reason why you're seeing some, for water fund, it's lower than it has been. It was 8%. At least 8% over the last few years. Now we're at 4%, and hopefully we can maintain something even more reasonable than that as rates go forward here. And then the sewer fund, we haven't increased those rates in many years. And so again, the fund balances are getting down there where we need to be careful so we don't have a huge rate increase down the line.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I didn't have anyone else in the queue, and I know we do want to have a quick talk about the request above the mayor's budget. So, Mike, I don't know if you want to talk about that one. Give us just a quick overview.
Sure. And with the 2% budget and all the positions that we lost in streets and facilities last year, I had to make I had to reshuffle some positions around. And one position that was defunded so that we could help pay for, or so that we could increase the seasonal budget in streets and facilities, and also to pay for a new stormwater engineering position that was that we pushed through a couple months ago. We had to drop a position, and the assistant transportation engineer is the current incumbent is on a scholarship, I believe, over in Europe right now. And he was granted a 12-month leave of absence. Since that time, we've created this Department of Transportation and Parking. It's led by Eric Hathaway, who's a solid transportation engineer. We've hired Aaron Cudahy, who's also a solid transportation engineer. And I just felt like, I'm not sure that we need an assistant transportation engineer on our roles right now, given all the other needs that we have in DPW. So that's why that position was cut. And Tim has put in a request above the mayor's budget, and I can have Tim speak to that.
Sure, thanks. I think, and Mike's right about how we've kind of rearranged the positions a little bit. We probably would have, if this was funded, the person working, Kent would probably not be just working on transportation issues. He'd be working a little bit in transportation and a little bit in my division just on capital project management or small pieces of that. I think with the proposed capital program for next year, the workload will, if anything, only increase. I think I'm just feeling the stress of staff positions. Also with the labor market conversation we just had, the idea of having this person come back and be on the roster right away and able to work for the entire year, not have to hire, even if we had a different position, would be really helpful. Even if this was only able to be funded as a one-time, one-year extension through ARPA funds, even that I think would be a big help in carrying the workload into 2022.
Great, thanks. I think, Steve, we just had I know I had a question. Is that number in the request above the mayor's budget, does that include the fringe? I didn't think so. Yeah. So right now it's on the list as 53,961.
Right. So the number would be 97,188 would be the number. And that would include reducing, I think Mike had in there additional $10,000 to help offset that position loss. So that would go away.
Right, to get an intern in or something like that.
Right.
And so I think in the request above the mayor's budget, Tim had offered to use that money to help fund the position instead, but no, fringe benefits weren't included in that.
So is the total impact, does that go up by 10 or down by 10,000? I guess I didn't. So it's really
97,188 includes taking the $10,000 out.
Okay,
That's included in the budget currently.
okay. Great. Do we have any other questions for DPW? Donna, I can resend, but there was one email with a whole bunch of all of the requests above the mayor's attachments, attachments to it. I can resend it.
I can look for it. Thank you.
Actually, Deb, I couldn't find that one either. I found all the other ones, but not that
All right,
one.
hang on. I can send it when the meeting's over.
Could you send it to me too, please, Deb?
I'm just gonna send it to everyone.
Not just me, nobody else.
I just have to
No.
find.
I don't think your assistant is very helpful, Deb.
This is Liam. He's very needy. We're house sitting. This is not a new dog. Say hi to Liam.
Hi, Leah.
Ginger is being overly
Woof.
friendly, so he's hiding out up here. Okay, what other questions do we have for anyone from DPW? Cynthia.
It's raining right now, and makes me think about stormwater management. How are you feeling in terms of the status of the crews we have and the ability to keep on top of the increasing volume of stormwater we're seeing coming into our roads and waterways? I mean, is this, with this coming year, I'm really concerned.
Yeah, and so this was part of the reason that we created the new stormwater engineer position. Right now, when we get a stormwater project, a lot of times it'll go to engineering, a lot of times it'll go to Scott Gibson, a lot of times it'll go to streets and facilities, and a lot of times it comes to me. And so what we were hoping to do is create a position that could sort of become the one-stop shop for stormwater issues. Somebody who could coordinate with all the other DPW divisions, but also start coordinating with, for example, the town of Ithaca. Because I know a lot of our stormwater problems are right there on that boundary between the town and the city. So we see that on West Hill, we see that on South Hill. The other thing is, with what I'm hoping is to really start some large stormwater projects coming up. Hopefully we'll win some grants. I think we've been talking with FEMA. FEMA knows what we would like to do. I think some of the flood control projects that we identified in the flood hazard analysis are the types of things that FEMA would love to do. They have a high cost or a high benefit cost ratio, and we've talked to them about it. But what that's going to take is somebody with a good knowledge of storm systems and creek flow and flooding issues. And so that's the position we're trying to attract. So in streets and facilities, we had a working supervisor, Roger Ward, who retired and then unfortunately died not long afterwards. But Roger took great care of our stormwater system. He would go around, he would check all the catch basins, make sure they were clean, inventoried everything we had. And with the loss of Roger, we're trying to bring another person up to replace Roger's skills. However, beyond maintenance, which DPW is very good at maintenance, I think on stormwater, we need to start looking at it more strategically. And I'd like to bring in engineering to not only carry on what Roger Ward was doing for us, but also start thinking ahead about climate change and some of these intermunicipal issues, particularly at the town-city borders. I would love to also drop some of this dredging stuff in this person's lap as well, because I've been working on it for a long time. But there's plenty of work for a stormwater engineer. This position would be under Mark Verbanek. It would sort of be kind of an equivalent position to Cliff Murphy, where this person could directly supervise a new working supervisor, and we're hoping that we could get a more trained crew that's just dedicated to stormwater work in streets and facilities. So this would take some of the load off of Cliff and advance what we've been doing beyond just maintenance and repair.
Would this person also be able to address some of the I&I issues we're facing in the city?
I think I&I is probably a different issue.
Okay.
I mean, they might be mildly related, but Scott could probably speak to that a little bit more. But I think that has a lot to do with the water tightness of our existing sanitary pipes. And certainly, you know, stormwater pipes, if they leak and they're right next to a leaky sanitary pipe, that of course will increase I&I. But Scott, I know we've been looking at some studies on I&I, and but you could probably speak to that better than I could.
Well, Cynthia's been involved in it as well. We've got 14 municipal flow meters at the municipal boundaries that we've been working on rehabilitating. An instrumentation and controls contractor has been working with the wastewater treatment plant, getting those back up and running. And, you know, it speaks to working with Cayuga Heights as well, because they're interested in sending some of their peak flow over to the wastewater treatment plant in Ithaca to peak shave. And so at this point in time, we are, Cynthia, what, about 90% there. We have at least capabilities of looking at a real-time flow monitoring dashboard. And we have contracted with MRB consultants to further evaluate I&I in the jurisdiction. And I know the town of Ithaca has worked exclusively on I&I as well. So we're definitely interested in understanding what percentage of flow doesn't belong in the wastewater treatment plant. And these flow meter rehabilitation projects will help in that attempt.
Thank you.
Great. Any other DPW questions? Okay, so let's really quickly look at the list again. I have made the adjustment in funding, and I'll send this out this evening. I also just sent the request above the mayor's budget out to council for the assistant transportation director. And so this evening, the changes that we've made are to remove the one fire department request. I have added the UPI request for the additional ARPA funds. We think we'll add the library request once we see that information come through. And then I've modified the amount that we had originally assigned to the assistant transportation director up to $97,188. Any other changes that we made to the list tonight that I forgot about? Nope. Okay. So what we're looking at is our next meeting. We do have, and thankfully everyone was really great about kind of managing issues. So we do have, I think Steve and I looked at the agenda today. It's just a super short city administration. I think there's just one voting item on it at this point, which is, you know, seems routine. So we will be able to have just a very short city administration committee meeting at 5:30. So since now we've added capital projects to the 27th as well, if everybody just wants to be here for city administration at 5:30, then when that's over, we can just move right into budget. So if that, you know, or come sign on around 5:40, 5:45 or something like that, then we can get started on budget as soon as possible. Do we have any other questions for this evening? Sorry, Tim, I had the title wrong. Yep. It's fine. I am not seeing any, so we will just adjourn until the 27th. We will have CA at 5:30 and we'll pick up with this conversation soon after. Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Deb.
Deb.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.